Valeir Extra.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Band, Bikes and Booze Reviews. One from Belgium today, and it is the Valeir Extra, which is a beer that comes from the Contreras Brewery, which is based in a small village in East Flanders. And that's called Valeir. I think that's how it's pronounced, Valeir or Valeir or something. I'm Flemish. I can't speak that fucking language. I'm sorry. And it's funny actually because in work one day we had a fella who came from Antwerp, and I was talking to him about how I sort of know Belgium quite well. And I'd normally go to Bruges and places like that, and he says, if I went to Bruges, he says, I just cannot understand what they're saying. He said their accent is so strong, and he sort of likened it to the way Geordies speak, because it was funny. There was a bloke on his firm who was a Geordie, and it was quite a broad Newcastle or Tyne and Wear accent, and he couldn't understand a word he said, but he said it was easier to understand him than it was to understand people from his own country who spoke Flemish. So that's my defence for not being able to pronounce these words, unfortunately. Luckily, I have a couple of subscribers who come from the region, and they can correct me on my absolute dogshit grammar in Flemish, which is handy. Anyway, let's get back to the beer. This is Valeir Extra, which is, according to the description, it's a hoppy golden ale from Belgium. Belgian single, if you like, a Belgian blonde, whatever you want to call it. Now, this brewery has been going quite a while. 1818 they started, and as with most Belgian brewers, they started on a farm, and eventually they became commercialised and went for a big modernisation after World War I in about 1920. It's always been family run, and it's still family run today by some tenuous link, but it is still independent. And they've gone through a couple of modernisations, one in 1920 and the most recent one in 2004, when they started really getting onto the export market and exporting this stuff. And here we are now with a bottle of it. I really don't know what to expect from these. And I've tried some of these hoppy Belgian blonde ales before, and they can go wrong, and there's adjuncts in here such as the sugar that can make or break this beer, because if you're adding hops, I'll get onto what hops are in there in a minute, but if you're adding them sort of hops, you need to balance that out with sugar, I think. Otherwise you end up with a very modern tasting beer, especially if you're using American hops, which this one does. And I wouldn't say you bastardise the style, but I think you lose track of the style, and the description doesn't really fit. But that is just my take on it. Now, this beer is called Valeir. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm assuming it's something to do with Cavalier or Cavalier, I don't know. But it's named after soldiers who fought in the 1400s, and there was a particular battle in Valeir, believe it or not, between some Belgian prince, I think, and the people of Ghent. I think it was the people of Ghent. And they were doing that quite a lot. The people were fighting with the nobility, which I think it only happened once in the United Kingdom. Or it wasn't the United Kingdom then, it was England, wasn't it? And the Peasants' Revolt, which happened just up the road. Wat Tyler is from Kent. And I think, where is it? It's in Maidstone. There is a road called Wat Tyler Way, named after him. Yeah. Wonder what he'd make of today's government. Probably not a lot. Anyway, enough about politics. I'm not bringing politics into this channel. Let's get on to the beer. This is a 330ml bottle. It's 6.5%, which is about average for a Belgian blonde ale. It contains hops, and it does make a big thing about the hops that go into this beer. Now, this brewery do use a lot of the noble hops. They use Tettnang, Saartz hops, and Hallertau hops as well. But they also use Brewer's Gold, which is a British hop, or an English hop, I should say. And I've seen that before a few times in Belgium, where they use English hops, which is a nice touch, I think. I'm always pleased to see that our hops have an influence on certain countries. I know Germany, I don't think any German brewers use English hops, but they certainly use them in Belgium, which is nice. And I think they use them in some American breweries as well. Anyway, that's enough about that. It's top fermented, of course, and it contains candy sugar or invert sugar, whatever you want to call it. So it does fill the criteria, certainly the description of a Belgian blonde. I'll quickly just go over the hops. I know some of you aren't interested in what the hops are. I've even had a couple of comments saying hops shouldn't be in beer. Well, you know, if you think that, drink Gruit beer and then come back to me and say hops shouldn't belong in beer. You know, it's just a fucking... I don't even get that point of view, and you can argue all you want, but hops are what make beer taste like what it does. Because if you don't put the hops in, you have stuff like Gruit. And if you've ever tasted some of the Belgian Gruit beers, or the Dutch Gruit beers, or the Williams Brothers Heather Ale, you'll realise it ain't great without hops. But there you go. The hops are Amarillo, which is an American hop. Unusual in a Belgian beer, but not unheard of. And Amarillo hops are, of course, from, I think they originated, despite the name, which I think Amarillo is in Texas, I think they originated in the Washington State area, and they are renowned, as most American hops are, for their pine, their citrus flavours, etc. The other hop that's in here is a hop called Sterling hops. Now, I don't think I've had a beer with Sterling hops in them, but they're very similar to Saartz hops. You know, they've got the floral and they've got the spiciness going on. Of course, Saartz is a noble hop, usually grown in the Czech Republic or the borders of the Czech Republic, in Germany as well, and Austria. And it's a beer that you tend to find in Czech Pilsners, and it's very nice. I do like the taste of Saartz hops. It does give it quite a unique sort of taste. So there you go. That's the spiel on it. Let's get it open. Let's see what's going on. Right, where's my cap lifter? Let's get this off. That is just plain green, nothing to see here. Now, it says on the website, or their website, that it's served in a chalice very similar to that. So that is where it's going to go. Of course, it is a blonde. Let's hope it doesn't taste like Leffe, because that really is a massive pile of shit. Oh, you can definitely smell them Amarillo hops. And again, I'll come back to this, you know, people saying that hops don't matter in beer. Hops are what gives it its character. Yes, the malt does as well, I agree, and the yeast, but it's the sum of all its parts. No ingredient is more important than the other, in my opinion. As long as the quality of them is good, that is what counts. Right, on the nose, a very distinct fruity, citrusy aroma, sort of smell you'd get in American IPAs, you know, your mango. A little touch of pine on there that's coming from the hops, the Amarillo hops, and that is quite dominant. It smells quite sweet and fruity, mango, orange, a little bit of passion fruit, and that pine as well. Interesting in a blonde. I think the Belgian brewers are starting to latch onto the American hops now, which I think Well, it can go one of two ways. I have tasted some of them before with American hops in. They do a Belgian IPA, and it wasn't too bad actually, because the Belgians are good brewers. Well, most of them are anyway. There it is in the glass. Looks like a typical Belgian blonde. Cloudy, 1.5 finger, foamy white head. Yeah, it's just, it smells like an American pale ale. That's what I'm getting. If in a blindfold test, I'd say that was an American pale ale, possibly a mid, not an East Coast, not a West Coast, a bit of a mixture of the two, because I am getting some of the pine, which you normally associate with bitter West Coast IPAs. Anyway, enough about that. Proof is in the tasting. Let's get it down my Gregory Peck. Bottoms up. Dive in again. That is, now they've called this a blonde, and remember what I was saying before about if you get the balance wrong, it doesn't taste like a Belgian blonde, and this doesn't. This tastes like a, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I'll get onto that in a bit, but the description of it being a Belgian blonde, no, it's not. Them Amarillo hops that they've put in there are very dominant indeed, and it's given it real citrusy notes, real fruity notes, and real pine notes. The sort of flavours you would expect from an American style IPA or an American style pale ale, but it's a little bit too full bodied for a pale ale. It's got a bit more weight to it, if you know what I mean. So what I said before, it's a cross. It's got the fruit of a New England, but it's got the bitterness on there of a West Coast, and the two sort of balance it out. Of course, there's sugar in there as well. You're not getting much of that, to be honest. It's all about the fruity hops. No banana and no clove. Two flavours I would associate with a Belgian blonde or Belgian single, whatever you want to call it. All that being said, it isn't too bad. It hasn't got that horrible bitter finish that I don't like in some of them really high IBU American West Coast pale ales, and some of the, obviously the IPAs as well, but you do get it in some of the pale ales too. This is quite well balanced, but if you're buying this thinking you're getting some good Belgian style flavours, you're going to be mistaken, unfortunately, because it's not there. This is, it's just okay. I think it's gone a little bit, well, has it? Yeah, I think it's gone a little bit too far with the American hops, but not so far as to completely alienate this style, or completely ignore this style, I should say. Yes, it's got characteristics of Belgian blonde ale, and they are the big body that you get on quite a few of them Belgian blondes. There is a hop bitterness on the arse end of it, which isn't American, but all the way through you're getting the big American style flavours, like the, as I said, the mango, the passion fruit, all coming from the Amarillo hop. Now the Amarillo hop is quite a nice hop, and normally it's used in conjunction with other style hops. It's very fruity, and it contains that pine, resiny type flavour to it as well, which used in moderation is quite nice. If you go over the top with any of them flavours, you just, I don't know, you just lose all character. in the beer, I think. I'm not going to go into a rant about American hops, because American hops do have their place. And what I don't like is the just bombarding a beer with American hops, you know, such as a Pilsner or a lager, using American hops in a lager. I know, yeah, you can say, oh, it's experimentation, you shouldn't do it, but, you know, would you have... I would actually, so I'm not going to use that example. I was going to say, would you put tomato sauce on a roast dinner? Yeah, I would do that. I know that's fucking heresy, but I just like it. But would you put, I don't know, custard on chips? Not really. And if you say, yeah, it's experimentation, yeah, you could say that, but yeah, that ain't going to be nice. But there you go. That's just my take. And, you know, I do see a lot of these traditional Italian chefs, and they look at people trying to cook Italian food, and you can see that their heart's breaking, because they're breaking with tradition and putting their own twists on it. And yeah, people respect that. But when you talk about beer and I say, you know, oh, you shouldn't really be putting American hops in lager, oh, fuck off, you know, it's experimentation. Who are you to say, you know, they shouldn't be doing that? And I just think, well, you know, if an Italian chef says it, it's, you know, let's all fucking bow down to the Italian chef, or a French chef. But if someone says that about beer, you're a twat, fuck off. There you go, such is life. What can I do? So what's the verdict on Valeir? Sounds French, it does, doesn't it? But it's Flemish, apparently. What's the verdict on Valeir Extra? Not the greatest blonde, not the worst. I think the American hop character has sort of dominated in this beer, but in its favour, it's actually produced a reasonably good beer. I quite like it. Yes, the carbonation is there. Yes, the body is there. No banana, no clove. ABV is there. So it's quite nice. If you're a fan of IPAs and American Pale Ales and you want to get into Belgian beer, this would be a good starter for you. But I don't really know people that have... Well, I do actually. That's a lie. I know people that have tried IPAs before they've tried Belgian beer. So this may be a good bridge if you want to do it. For me, there's better blondes out there all day long. Now, I'm not talking about Leffe. Leffe is... you know, all them crap macro brewed blondes that you get, and Leffe is the biggest one, but there's others as well. This, I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10, and that sounds like I'm being harsh. It isn't a bad beer, but there is just so many better blondes out there, and it's lacking some of the traditional flavours of a Belgian blonde. And for me, I'm like the Italian chef. I like tradition. You know, you can say, oh, you're a fucking Philistine and, you know, you're living in the past, but that's just me. Yeah, maybe I am. What of it? So I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. But, you know, if you like your American flavoured hops, or your American hops, I should say, you like your pale ales and stuff, this is quite a good introduction to Belgian beer if you're not already into that style. But there you go. And remember, am I drinking this shit, or am I going to say it's champagne? I don't know. I don't care. Try it if you want. And remember, don't drink French beer.